countdown, and then I'll just come to you after you hit one.
Okay, so we will ready to roll?
Yeah, about now. Where should I just go to Facebook as soon as we start?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So we'll go Vince in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And welcome, everyone, to WKYC's Facebook Live and also YouTube. I'm Dave DeNatale with Tyler Carey as we are ready for high school football season. It officially kicks off tomorrow. Our WKYC Game of the Week will be on Friday night. And TC, first and foremost, the response to this game one and all the the excitement about getting the season underway. We had 3 great nominees.
Absolutely.
I mean, we had Glenville hosting Euclid. Mm-hmm. We had Medina hosting Cleveland Heights. And, of course, we had Wadsworth hosting Highland. Couldn't go wrong with any of those games.
No.
55,000 votes at WKYC.com.
We're still in shock over it, aren't we?
I know. I'm crazy. But we will be in Medina County. We will be at Wadsworth on Friday night. Mark Munch-Bishop and yours truly will have the action for you as the Grizzlies play host to the Highland Hornets. I couldn't be more excited. I think it's a great way to start the sean.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love high school football. I still go back to my days at Kent State when I was at TV2. Shout out to everybody I still know there. When we would cover the Portage Trail Conference, the PTC, with our weekly high school football show. And I would kind of help out with the power rankings, eventually ended up hosting it. And I just remember how much fun it was to just follow these teams, get the stats, get the highlights. And then I think we've kind of found our own niche as to how we cover high school football. We picked this one game that we're going to go all out for. And last year we made significant strides with it. You and Matt Florjancic was on a lot of calls, Mark Munch-Bishop as well. And I think by the state championship game we were getting hundreds of views, thousands of views.
Yeah.
People really took to it, and that's why we're bringing it back this year.
Yeah, if you're new to it, you're like, okay, well, everybody does high school football and everything, but this is kind of a unique way we bring it to you. We ask for your vote, and 55,000 of you voted at WKYC.com. We picked 3 nominees for Game of the Week, put it out on Monday, and then the voting goes until Wednesday, and that's when we announce the Game of the Week. And then Friday, we're out there for an audio play-by-play of the game here at WKYC.com, on Facebook, on the WKYC app, and on YouTube. But we also have our intrepid photojournalist Brian Crane there, and he's going to take some great video shots of the game, and we put together kind of an audio-video highlight reel at the end of the night. We ask for your pictures, we get tweets. I mean, we really try to make it a complete experience for everybody. The bands are involved, so I couldn't be more excited to have year 2 of this.
I am so happy that we have Brian Crane back doing the video highlights for, and he never one to miss a compliment, Brian Crane. No. But just the work he did last year with the video highlights, because obviously, for those of you wondering, the reason we're not showing the game like via video stream is because we're not allowed.
Yes.
OHSAA regulations prevents us from doing that live. So in order for us to do a live broadcast, we have to do the audio stream. But I still think that works out. People still get to listen to it. And in the end, they're going to get the highlights on the 11 o'clock news and online. And we'll have a recap of all the other games as well. But it's been able to work. And I will say, I'm not sure Crane is too happy about going all the way to Wadsworth.
But you know what? It was one of we went to Wadsworth last year and we saw the Grizzlies play Medina, and I think it was like a week 3 matchup.
Yes.
It was another non-conference game, and Wadsworth is such a great atmosphere for football, and they've been one of the premier programs over the last couple of years. And I thought that maybe they had a shot to get to a state championship, and they ran into Massillon in the playoffs, and they ended up not getting all the way. But they're still a great program. I mean, Justin Todd does a great job as a coach. Mm-hmm. Stauffer's back at quarterback, and I think it's a team that, again, is loaded up against a Highland team that always we saw last year. They can score anytime. Offense, defense, and special teams.
Yeah, Highland was actually a part of our first game of the week. They went to Brunswick week 1 and really blew them out 28-7, and arguably it wasn't even that close.
Right.
3 touchdowns. Wadsworth, a team, here's a stat for you, 21 straight regular season wins. So this is a team that certainly knows how to handle business in conference play, and they really don't mess around with these teams either. They blow them out for the most part. Unfortunately, when they get against some of the bigger schools like Massillon last year, they were the ones that got blown out.
Yeah.
That's understandable. Massillon, obviously, a very good team.
Elite, yeah.
But I think they would love to take that next step here, and this is really the first time to do it. And Highland, the team, 8-2 last year, very impressive record. They did miss the playoffs. They did lose a couple of games to some very good teams, but again, for them, this is a springboard. If they can come out, beat Wadsworth week 1, we all know Ohio.
That streak. That's a springboard.
And we know it's all about the computer points when it comes to the playoff rankings, too. So you have to assume that Wadsworth's going to have a pretty good year, even if they do lose that first game. So whoever wins this game is going to get a big jump on making headway in those standings.
Just looking at the comments, Susan says, "Go Marshall Lawyers." Oh, absolutely. Listen,
and Bay High Rockets.
Go for those Bay Rockets. That was one of the best games we had last year, Bay and Elyria Catholic, and I absolutely think that we'll see that again. Karen says, "Why don't you showcase the marching bands?" We actually, Karen, part of our product and what we do is at halftime we actually show the bands. You see both performances, the home band and the away band. So yes, that's part of the overall package. I mean, we really want to make sure that the student sections are showcased, the bands are showcased, because it's all part of the experience. And I mean, they work very hard too, and to her point. So just to answer that, Karen, yeah, we will be showing the bands.
We're actually talking to our boss about that earlier today, about making sure we get the bands and the cheerleaders and the atmosphere.
That's all part of the experience. That's what makes high school football fun.
It's what I love about high school football and college football as well, even though it's on a much larger scale. It's just the atmosphere of it all and the team pride thing. Not that we don't have pride in our pro teams. Obviously, we're going to have a lot of pride in the Browns this year. But there's just something special when it comes to your local town team that really just gives you that extra connection to it.
Absolutely. Okay, so again, our matchup Friday night is going to be the Highland Hornets and the Wadsworth Grizzlies. Munch and I will have it for you. We'll get started about 6:50 with the pregame and then into the play-by-play. Now, also during the week, every Wednesday when we do this show, we'll be announcing what our game of the week is, but we'll also be announcing our teams to watch every week, kind of our edition of a poll and things like that. And you've put together our premier poll, and I love it. I think 11 teams that I can't say for sure that we'll be covering them, but we're going to be watching them Friday nights, Saturdays, and in some cases Thursday, because, I mean, arguably the game of the week is going to be played tomorrow up with Mentor and St. Ed's.
It's become an annual thing, but it's always so much fun to watch when those two big programs get together. Yeah, I was originally going to go with 10 teams, but I just figured I could not leave one team off of here.
I get that. I get that. Okay, so drum roll, who you got?
Oh, you want to start at the top or at the bottom?
Oh, you can start from the bottom. That's
okay.
Fine.
All right, we'll go from the bottom then. Number 11, Glenville.
Yes.
Now, this was a team that Ted Ginn seniors, they've fallen on some relatively hard times. I don't want to say like, oh my God, they're all of a sudden in the basement, but they went from Division I. I believe this is 10 years ago this year. They were in the D1 state championship game. They're now in D3 because of enrollment and other competitive balance issues. And last year, they did not even make the postseason because of the situation with certain players were there that shouldn't have been. Now, they did go 8-2. They did have a very nice win over Olentangy Liberty, and they would have made the playoffs. I think this team is very much primed to make a run again this year, especially in D3, where they can maybe,
I think it's more of a level field for them. I really think this is a big game for them against a good Euclid team.
Yes, team that's taken them to the woodshed the last couple of years.
I mean, because very few coaches do it better than Jeff Rotsky. So I'm going to be watching, that score in that game pretty closely Friday night. But Glenville's certainly worthy to be in the top 11. Who else we got? Who's number 10?
Number 10. This a very, very underrated team that I think more people should be looking at. Akron East.
Yeah.
The Dragons. I use 247 Sports for my recruiting knowledge. They've got about as many D1 recruits, FBS recruits, as any school in Northeast Ohio. They're right on par with Massillon and Hoban, which we'll get to later in this list, believe me. Now, maybe not as high of caliber, but when you've got that many, you've got to be doing something right. They kind of get overshadowed a little bit playing in the Akron City series, but Marquise Hayes is very quietly built a very good program. They went 9-3 last year. They made the D3 playoffs. I do believe, though, that this team can compete with anybody in D3.
Yeah, and it's one thing to make it to the playoffs, but to actually get into week 11 and week 12, that makes you battle tested. And I mean, they're not a fluke.
Absolutely
they're
not.
not a fluke. Carol says, "Go band kids rock." Listen, we love bands around here. We love the bands.
I was never good at playing music myself.
No,
but
I wasn't
did enjoy
either.
the band.
I wasn't either. But I promise we will. We'll give all the band, the kids and the families plenty of love this year.
Absolutely. Now we'll go to. They weren't on my written list, but I have them in my head because I added them later. This was the 11th team technically, but they're ranked number 9. Kenston.
Oh,
a team
yes,
that is
the
very,
champs.
very close to our hearts. We kind of adopted them, if you would say, last year as kind of our Cinderella story.
Yeah.
And they had a very good year, but of course, you always expect those public schools to kind of flame out in the playoffs at times. They made a
They got
run.
better. They got better every single week. And, it's funny because we watched them in a game that would have clinched them, I think, at the time, home field. I think they still got home
game,
field.
yeah.
But we had that Chardon game, and they outplayed Chardon for, 46 out of 48 minutes, but they couldn't finish off the Hilltoppers. And I can remember walking down with their Kenston's athletic director, and I think we both said, this is going to go one of two ways. Either this team's going to flame out or they're going to build from it. Mm-hmm. And Jeff Grubich kept his kids focused and motivated. And they've got Tom Kupsik is back at quarterback.
Yeah.
Jack Porter is back running the football.
He is an absolute stud.
So I would think Kenston is going to be a team that will be right back into the postseason again this year. And, I mean, it was not a fluke. By the time they got to Canton, I mean, they pulverized the opposition. So they're going to be a team to watch.
Quick note, Jack Porter, by the way, last 2 years, nearly 4,000 rushing yards, 54 touchdowns.
Yeah. He knows how to find the end zone.
Certainly a Mr. Football candidate.
Yes.
All right, number 8, Cleveland Heights. This was a team that barely missed the playoffs last year. Had it not been for a couple of tough losses against Medina in week 1, who they're playing again this year, and unbeaten Maple Heights in the very last game of the year. They only lost by a touchdown. They've always been built on defense, and they've got 2 really good players this year. Justin Woodley, who's going to Cincinnati, and Giovanni Holmes is in the backfield. Yep. Max Stevens has always built this team on stopping the offense on the other side of the ball. Key is, can their offense, pick up the sack and maybe get them a few more points? I really think this could be the year where they could take that next step.
Love the matchup in week 1 against Medina. I think that'll be a game to watch. Jordan Miller. Carrollton Warriors going to make this list. No, Jordan, they are not going to make this list.
Unfortunately, no, Jordan. That's our own Jordan Miller, actually, from WKYC.
King of Carroll County.
Yes. Okay, number 7, Solon. Now, Jim McQuaid, this is actually my dad's alma mater, and he still knows people back there. Jim McQuaid, this will be his 17th season as the head coach at Solon. He's done a fine job there. And he's recently been promoted to athletic director as well. But he's feeling the heat a little bit. They have not been past the second round in quite a while. They've never won a regional championship game under him, despite being ranked 1 or 2 many years. And they had that flame-out playoff loss against Camp McKinley last year.
But I remember the one thing I took away from that game when we were out there and Munch and I did that game was that they did have young players coming back that got a taste of playoff experience, and we kind of felt that maybe that would be helpful going forward. But to lose at home, that was a hard way for them to finish. So I would agree with you. I think it's going to be a big challenge this year for Solon to kind of get back into the elites.
You mentioned the young players, though. One of those we're all going to have to keep an eye on. Najee Story, defensive end. He may be the best player in Northeast Ohio. He's been recruited. He's got offers from Michigan, Notre Dame, Penn State.
Yep.
Rumor is he's leaning towards Ohio State, fingers crossed, but I think this team's going to run through him, especially on defense.
Yes.
If he can do what he's meant to do, then they've got a shot at making a run.
Well, especially when they have to play, the Menners of the world. They've got to be able to you got to be able to win a scoring battle, and you've got to be able at some point to get a stop. He'll be a part of that.
Yeah. Speaking of the team that they lost to in that first playoff game. Canton McKinley comes in at number 6. They were 9-3, Federal League champs last year. This is going to be a bit of a transition for him. Head coach Dan Reardon has left. He's going back to Ursuline. They did make a splash at the hire. Marcus Watley, former St. V coach, was with Akron at the time. So they're going to transition there. The other thing that I think they want to transition from, it's kind of become a theme for them in the last 3 years. They get off to a real hot start, often like 7-0, 8-0. Then it's lose to Perry, lose to Massillon, and then flame out in the playoffs.
That's your season. It was big. And I remember Coach Reardon, he was so excited that they got that playoff win kind of off their back a little bit. But, yeah, you're right. And so much of it is they got to find a way to beat Massillon.
Oh, yeah.
You got to win that rivalry
like
game.
Michigan, Ohio State. I mean, Rex Kern, former Ohio State quarterback, would once say, I'd rather go 1-8 and beat Michigan than go 8-1 and lose to them. I'm not saying you don't want to make the playoffs, obviously, because that's great even if you lose to Massillon, but when you don't win those games, the fans get a little restless.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Big time. Now, the aforementioned Menor Cardinals, are they next?
They are number 5. Now, this is going to be a big year for them, and you are aware of this. Steve Trevisano, his 23rd and final season as the head coach of the Menor Cardinals. He has had a fantastic career there. I'm not going to call it a retirement because he has said he would like to coach maybe at the college level down the road. But the one thing he doesn't have is that elusive state championship, and he's come so close. And last year, heartbreaking fashion again, they're in the regional final against St. Edward, a team they beat earlier in the season, and they lost that game. Now this year they do have Ian Kipp, who's dual threat quarterback, maybe the best QB in Northeast Ohio, Boston College commit Luke Floria. This is his last chance.
Yeah.
They've got a good chance at it, and again, they start with Eds and Ignatius. So
I mean,
you can never say Steve Trevisano wouldn't like to play anybody anywhere.
He loads up the schedule, but that's how they want it. They want to be ready when they get in the conference play in October and then into postseason in November. They want to be ready, and they're going to get themselves ready by stacking that non-conference schedule with 2 heavyweights.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of those heavyweights, number 4, St. Ignatius.
Yes.
No list would be complete without Chuck Kyle's group.
They got it.
I mean, now last year, again, I think they were ranked number 1 in many of the polls, and it was just an odd year in the way that it ended. You beat St. Edward, your arch rival, last week this season in Cleveland, or First Energy Stadium. I'm still not used to saying that. And then you play them the very next week. That's got to be weird for everybody, and you lose as a favorite. I mean, I think most people thought that Ignatius was just going to blow them out again. Not the case.
Yeah, and Eds ended up, kind of being galvanized after that and rode that wave all the way to a state championship. So it just goes to show sometimes these regular season games are important, and they can oftentimes define you going forwards in the playoffs. But as we've seen, often you can beat somebody in the regular season, but then when the postseason comes around, it's like a totally different monster, and that's, I think, what happened to Ignatius. But I would expect they'll be right in the thick of things again, as will your number 3 team. Yeah,
but number 3 team is their arch rival, St. Edward.
The champs.
Coming off I guess we could call it a surprising state championship for St. Edward, but especially with the gauntlet they had to run through. But you really can't be too surprised when St. Edward wins anything on a state level.
By the time they got there, I mean, they had beaten so many tough teams that, I expected them to win. I didn't think they would lose to Coleraine, and they played so well, especially in the second half. And I would anticipate, again, they've got a lot of D1 caliber players, those FBS caliber players on the team, and guys that are going to be back after winning a state championship are going to be hungry to defend the title, and you say it wasn't a fluke that we earned this thing. So I love the fact that they stay open with Menor, and I think that's going to be a marquee matchup tomorrow night.
Interesting note this year, the St. Edward St. Ignatius game is going to be in week 7.
Yes, that's
not
correct.
the last week of the season. I'm not quite sure why they did that this year. Maybe it's to avoid the situation like they had last year where they get a rematch, but you could have that with anybody, theoretically.
Right.
So that will be a little bit of a different vibe to it, but I don't think it's going to take away from the intensity of that game at all.
No, you can play it any place, any time, and it's special.
Okay, number 2, Massillon, Washington.
Yes.
The Great Tigers of Massillon. Now, if anybody's going to knock off Archbishop Hoban, and that could give you a clue as to who the number 1 team is going to be, it's going to be Nate Moore's bunch is stacked.
Yes.
You've got so many great D1 FBS caliber players, include Jaden Ballard is their best player. He's only a junior, committed to Ohio State, one of the best wide receivers in the country. He's going to be catching a lot of passes from Aiden Longwell, who probably the best pro-style quarterback in Northeast Ohio. On defense, Luke Murphy is going to lead them in the backfield. Massillon has not won a state championship since 1970.
Yeah.
Before the playoff system was in place.
And oftentimes, when you talk about high school football in Ohio, they're the first that comes up because of the tradition, because of Paul Brown, because of Chris Spielman and the Wheaties box.
Oh, in my mind, it's the most storied program in Ohio.
It's the most storied program in Ohio, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
And this might be their best chance.
Yeah.
But the problem is they run into team number one.
Archbishop Hoban.
More than likely
Yes.
would be in their path again to get to the state championship. And I mean, Massillon played them as well as anybody, but Hoban's number one for a reason because they've been number one for a long time.
Well, they're going, Dino, for their 5th straight state title. Only in Ohio, only St. Ignatius has done that back in 1995 under earlier on in Chuck Kyle's leadership. Diamante Trayanum is going to be their top player, the early Mr. Football candidate, Arizona State commit. Kind of a good get for Herm Edwards there.
Yeah, I remember when you because we kind of were looking at this, and I remember I was like, my training was so great last year, and the game we saw in the regional, the state semis against Avon, and he was so good in that game, and you remember thinking, man, he could go anywhere. That's a great get for Herm Edwards, but they're just loaded, and they're loaded with talent. And I often found last year watching them that it was almost like they were toying with their opponents a little bit, and that opened themselves up to penalties and sometimes turnovers.
Well, the Massillon game,
they were good enough to overcome it. I just think that's going to be something to watch this year. Did they clean up their game a little bit to the point where they're able to go out there and play without any major miscues and stay focused throughout the course of the season? It's hard to argue. I mean, 4 straight state championships, unbeaten last year. But
29-game winning streak.
That would be the thing I would watch from them is, can somebody get to them on a night where they're not playing their best football?
Well, and we mentioned the state championship game against Massillon. By the way, I think they're in the same region this year, so they would not meet in the state championship game again, because that was pretty cool to have an all Northeast Ohio title game. They won that game 42-28. That's decently sizable margin. That was their smallest win margin of the year.
And there was a point where Massillon was in that ball game.
Yeah.
But not long.
No.
But there was a point. But that's going to be the team to watch all year. The defending champs. They got to play it. They're playing Saturday to open the season up because Munch is, after working with me on Friday, Munch is going to be doing their game on Saturday. I think it's against a team from Pennsylvania on Saturday. But they'll be the team to watch all year long, and it's going to take something amazing, I think, to knock them out of one.
Absolutely. Just a couple of notes. Hoban, according to USA Today's preseason rankings, national rankings, 17th in the country.
Wow.
So I think there was one other Ohio team ahead of them, maybe one of the Cincinnati schools.
Probably.
But things go their way. They got a shot at maybe a national championship.
Maybe a top 10, yeah.
And then 2 other teams that I did not mention who are not on this list, partly because they're just smaller schools. Orville, defending D5 state champion. What a season they had last year. They opened with Worcester, who beat them last year. And team very close to our hearts, very close to our news director John Atkins' heart, the Kirtland Hornets. Defending D6 champions, moving up
they're moving
to
up
D5.
to 5. Yeah, they're moving up to 5 this year, and I would suspect we will have them on the schedule this year as well. They're just such a great team, and that was watching them rally to beat Mogador. That was one of the best games we had all year. And then
I think that might have been our game of the year.
And then to see them win the state championship was tremendous. Okay, that'll do it for us. I'll see you back here in about 2 hours or so with Jim Donovan on the Donovan Live postgame show. But remember, Friday night it all gets underway. Live from Wadsworth. We'll have our coverage about 6:50 or so. Mark Bunch Bishop and yours truly will have the call. But all sorts of fun elements for you here on WKYC.com. to enjoy high school football throughout the year. And we'll be doing this every Wednesday, TC. So
I can't wait. I'm really excited for this season. It's, like I said, I love high school football. It's always fun to see what these little towns can do. Some bigger than others, obviously, but let's just see what happens. Anything can happen in this.
Anything can happen. We'll have a lot of fun. Okay, that'll do it for us. For Tyler Carey, I'm Dave DeNatale. Thanks for watching our special high school football preview show right here on WKYC's Facebook Live and YouTube.